What's up, everybody? It's Trey Smith on the College Underdogs YouTube channel. Yes, I'm back. And I know it's been a while, but I had to chime in on this Arkansas coaching search, and we're going to get into it right after this. All right, so Jacob Davis over at Hogs SI, which if you've been following me from the beginning, you know I used to actually write for that website as well, the SI, Sports Illustrated, All Hogs page. Anyway, Jacob Davis put an article out a couple of days ago about the Razorback coaching search and that it seems to be lasering in or three candidates have been vetted or separating from the pack. Anyways, it's three American Conference coaches. And so, again, if you've been following the channel, you know at one point in time, I was almost exclusively covering the American Athletic Conference. So I wanted to kind of chime in on a couple of these coaches and how they might fit in Fayetteville. And if you don't already know, the three coaches are Memphis's Ryan Silverfield, USF's Alex Golesh, and then, of course, UNT's Eric Morris. In fact, in the article, he states that Eric Morris's stock to be Arkansas's head coach seems to have a rocket ship attached to it, whatever that might mean. But I want to just kind of talk about the fit, though, of each of these coaches. I have no idea where the Razorbacks are in the talks with this. The people that have been texting me, I've been hearing some potential assistant names. Now, this was a couple of weeks ago when Bobby Petrino was seemingly still a prime candidate. And for all we know, he still is one, but he's going to have to win some games. But I'm very intrigued by a couple of these American Conference coaches, and I'm going to get into that. But the one that I would be least excited about in Fayetteville is Ryan Silverfield. Now, you might go look at him on paper. You might go look at what he's done at Memphis and how many games he's won and think, that's crazy. He's a heck of a coach. Why wouldn't you want him at the University of Arkansas? And the thing is that what you have to understand about Coach Silverfield in Memphis is that pretty much every year that he's been there as the head coach, they've had a top two team in terms of roster talent in the conference, like roster talent and depth compared to the rest of the conference. Memphis is either number one or number two. And do you know how many conference championships he has to show for that? 0. And yes, he's won 10 games, I think, a couple of times. They've had a couple really good seasons, have not won the conference under his leadership as head coach just yet. But it just seems like, from my vantage point, and this is just my opinion, but they seem to underachieve with the level of talent that they have. Specifically as it pertains to the American Athletic Conference. And so my concern for Coach Silverfield in Fayetteville would be you're never going to have a top 2, top 3, top 5 roster talent compared to the rest of the SEC. So I'm not so sure how much his success is going to transfer to the Arkansas job. The success he's had in the Memphis job, how much that's going to transfer to the Arkansas job, because I think a lot of his wins, a lot of his success has been contingent on the fact that he's had one of the, if not the most talented rosters in the entire conference. I think a couple years there, you could argue that Tulane had a more talented roster. But overall, I mean, Memphis on both sides of the ball, their depth, their recruiting compared to the rest of the American Conference. I mean, it's head and shoulders number one. And it's like they just can't seem to get over that hump of not just getting to a New Year's Six bowl or now what would be a playoff bid, but just winning the conference championship, getting to the conference championship and winning. And so those would be, that would be the one, like I said, I'd be least excited about, because I don't see his, what he's done at Memphis transferring to Arkansas. He's not a play caller. That was never his. I think he's a former O-line guy, and then took over when Norvell left for Florida State. And I know a lot of you are hearing he's an O-line guy, never been a play caller, and you're immediately thinking of potentially Sam Pittman going, yeah, no thanks. But like I said, that's the guy I would be the least excited about. Now, these next two I'm very intrigued by for slightly different reasons. The first one I'll talk about, Alex Golesh at USF. You already know he immediately came into that program that had won like 4 games in 4 years and was bowl eligible year 1. So what's interesting is if you're a Razorback fan or you're an Arkansas fan or you're an Arkansas person watching this video, his initial starting quarterback at USF, well, he never officially named him the starter, but the returning starting quarterback from the year before when they went like 1-11 was Gary Bohannon from Earl, Arkansas. If you'll remember when Chad Morris came in and he was recruiting Connor Nolan, trying to get Gary Bohannon, but Bielema staff didn't really recruit Bohannon because his skill set didn't really fit necessarily what Bielema, with their system and Enos' system did. Well, long story short, Bohannon ended up at Baylor and then he ended up at USF. And I ran into Bohannon at the AAC Media Days going into Golesh's first season. And literally the first thing he told me when I was talking to him, I just asked him, I was like, hey, like how's the new coach? And I knew Golesh was from Tennessee, but I didn't know a lot about him. I knew he was the play caller at Tennessee. And he said, man, like, I'm not going to direct quote what Bohannon said because I don't remember, but it was along the lines of like he flipped this roster and seemingly changed the culture of this program overnight. And he said he brought in like, I don't know, 50 or 60 new players immediately, which I know now that's kind of par for the course in college football. I guess just hearing that from a player's perspective. And now Bohannon obviously didn't end up starting that year. I think Byron Burham ended up winning that job because I think they opened the season with Western Kentucky that year. But either way, I just think that his ability to impact the culture, change the roster. He's an offensive play caller. I know people have talked about his ties to the state and things like that. At this point, I could care less about that as it pertains to the head football coach. But he also has SEC experience. He was the play caller at Tennessee with Heupel. And they had some success when he was there before going to USF. The thing about Silverfield and Golesh is I don't know that either one of them, you know, are in as much of a rush potentially to get out of their current job as the next guy I'm about to talk about. I mean, they both have really good gigs at both USF and Memphis, and each of them can kind of wait for what they feel like is the right opportunity for them. And I don't know. I don't know if Golesh, I mean, he could certainly get paid more. It'd certainly be a tremendous opportunity to be a head coach in the SEC. I'm not saying anyone would turn down Arkansas to stay at USF, but if he felt like a better opportunity would also come available. I mean, even today, Hugh Freeze just got fired. I feel like coaches are getting fired daily now. So half the jobs in the SEC, maybe even more than that, could be open by the time the season's over. And so he may have more options from that standpoint. But this next candidate, very intriguing to me, particularly for the Razorback head coaching job, and that's Eric Morris at UNT. So as I mentioned, the article states that his stock for the Razorback job seems to have a rocket ship attached to it. They are on a bye week this week, so I'm curious if any conversations will transpire. But here's, everyone I think at this point has kind of figured out like this guy is 100% a talent developer. He's certainly a quarterback developer. He recruited Cam Ward from West Columbia, which is where my granddad went. My granddad's his jersey's retired at West Columbia. Not that any of you care, but he was an all-pro in the NFL, played with Jim Brown with the Cleveland Browns, and then ended up playing a couple years for the Cowboys after they became an expansion team. But I always thought that was cool. That's where Cam Ward went, West Columbia High School, ran the wing T or whatever it was. Morris recruits him to Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas, has success there. He ends up transferring to Washington State. Morris goes there as the OC. Yada, yada, yada. What you may not know is that even in his role at UNT, he's been doing like the same thing with the quarterbacks he's had. Yes, I know it's become a national story now that his current quarterback was a 0-star walk-on who didn't even start a varsity game in high school. And now he's passed for 600 yards. He's got 21 passing touchdowns, 600 yards in one game a couple weeks ago, or last week, I think it was. 21 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and he's just balling right now, and he's only a redshirt freshman. His first start was in a bowl game last year at the end of the season because he didn't even start in high school. However, if you look at his first 2 seasons, he had different quarterbacks. His first season, he had Chandler Rogers, who didn't even begin the season as a starter. The starter was a guy named Stone Earl. There was a little quarterback competition that was happening. Morris was the new guy in town trying to figure out what he had. He ended up rolling with Chandler Rogers, who I think went on to have maybe 3,000 yards passing, 1,000-ish yards rushing, ton of touchdowns accounted for, and then ended up getting an NIL bag to go to Cal. So he has to bring in another quarterback the next year, which was Chandler Morris, who he brought in from TCU. Chandler Morris balled out last year, got his NIL bag, went to Virginia, and now Chandler Morris is at Virginia, has them at 7-1 or 8-1, whatever it is. And so even beyond the Cam Ward and the Pat Mahomes, which I know are the big names that the media is associating with Eric Morris because he was a part of that, and obviously he's a Leach disciple, but even at North Texas as the head coach, you've seen his development of the quarterbacks that he's had. And what's, to me, the biggest evidence of that is the opportunities those quarterbacks have gotten after their one season under Morris. And not only that, man, but like even skill guys. I mean, he's had some receivers go to SEC schools. Like I think Ja'Cory Macklin ended up maybe at Kentucky after his first season. And also he's an air raid guy, but he runs the ball. And so you can go look at the numbers and do all that. But I think that in addition to the talent developer sort of skill set that he has to be able to develop the talent of his players, what I think would excite me about Eric Morris at Arkansas, and no, there's no relation to Chad Morris. Now, his quarterback last year, Chandler Morris, that I just referenced, that is actually Chad Morris' son. So I hope I'm not triggering any Razorback fans. But I would argue that the roster talent that North Texas has these past several years with Eric Morris is probably in relation to the American Athletic Conference. I would say it's comparable to what his roster talent at Arkansas could be, has the potential to be in comparison to the rest of the SEC. I wouldn't put North Texas's roster talent like at the, top 3 or whatever in the AAC necessarily. It definitely wasn't his first couple years, and I'm not so sure I would put it there this year even though they're 8-1 and balling out of control. I just think that he has a very effective system, a system of X's and O's, and a system of player development that if he could get guys in at Arkansas that, the talent on paper may not be real comparable to the rest of the conference, what he's able to get out of them, getting more with less out of them, is what I think would excite me to see him as the Razorbacks head coach. And then on top of that, man, the guy's a winner. Like he's won everywhere he's been, and he's a play caller. Now, I think even if you look at, because I know a lot of the knock on Leach guys is, those Leach systems don't play defense. And I think that would have been fair to say his first year for sure, and then a good chunk of last year. But I think somewhere mid-year last year, towards the end of the season, he shook some things up on the defensive side of the ball. And though they were improved last year from the year before, they still weren't very good. But so far this season, it's not just his offense that's cooking, man. His defense has played a lot better. I mean, this has been the best UNT defense of the Eric Morris era. And it's like all sort of coming together. And I think what he's doing at UNT is could be duplicated at Arkansas, meaning like who UNT is in the AAC. I mean, they just joined the conference a couple years ago. Like In fact, Eric Morris's first year at UNT was their first year in the AAC. And I think that who that team is in that conference is very comparable to who Arkansas could be from a roster talent perspective in the SEC. Man, I mean, I'll say this, the only knock, it's not even really a knock, and this may even be stupid, but the only concern that I personally would have about Eric Morris as the Arkansas head coach is the fact that, like, he's just a really down-to-earth, good, nice guy. I've met him a couple times at AAC Media Days. He'll talk to anybody, and you're like, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't you want that? You know, I mean, he's very much a player's coach. Players love him. He's not the type of coach that's going to, like, instill fear necessarily in the locker room. And I don't know if I just have some PTSD as a Razorback myself, but it's like Brett Bielema was a nice guy. Chad Morris was a nice guy, or was trying to be that was his shtick, the nice guy. Sam Pittman's a nice guy. And it's like, there's this part of me that's like, man, I almost feel like to win at Arkansas at this point, you got to be a coach that comes in and just scares everybody and puts fear in the entire locker room and has a strong level of accountability. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't hold players accountable. I'm not saying there's not accountability in his program. This is just me and my own issues with these players, coaches. Not saying you can't be that and win. I mean, look at Lane Kiffin, look at Drinkwitz. I mean, I don't think they're necessarily putting fear throughout their locker rooms, but they're winning a lot of games in the SEC. And I don't know. That's just the one, like, if it were to happen, I think when I initially saw his name linked to the job, that was the first thought I had, was like, oh man, this is going to sound stupid, but like, is he mean enough? You know, is he going to be able to instill the fear that's needed to win at the University of Arkansas? But then I actually started looking at the whole picture. I started thinking, you know, his ability to develop talent, his ability to build a program, his ability to implement an X's and O's system, his ability to call plays. And it's like, okay. He might just be the best fit for the job. I mean, I think him and Golesh have a lot of similarities. I do think, though, Golesh, on the other hand, instills a little more fear in the locker room. I don't know if that's the right way to put it or right way to word it, but anyways, if you're a Razorback fan, let me know in the comments. Would you be excited about any of these three candidates? If not, who are you hoping for? And then if you're one of the AAC subscribers that I have on here, as you're kind of following the coaches, I know there's some Memphis people. I know there's really some UNT and USF people subscribe to the channel. Like, do you think your coach is going? Where do you think they're going? Or do you think you're going to be able to keep them? So let me know down in the comments. I'm back. Thank you for watching. At some point, I'll be able to share more about what my journey has been and why it's taken so long to get back on here. I know I've been seeing the comments. Is this channel still active? Yes, we're still active. I'm just trying to expand the College Underdogs brand and reach and coverage of who and what teams and programs we talk about. But until next time, that's it for me, Trey Smith, College Underdogs.